this thing behind me is pretty soon gonna earn its own channel on a YouTube, because most of the stuff that I do with it right now, most of the stuff that I do on my channel is related to that. So what happened now? Well, this happened. Well, this is what happened when you leave a old diesel with 260,000 miles, 262,000 miles out in the freezing cold with the bad spark plugs, glow plugs. Yeah, this is like 5th attempt. Yeah, I don't think this thing has a working glow plugs period, which is kind of odd. The light does come on. Maybe it's just, no, I think we'll have it's sucking air into the system. That's more like it, which sucks. Literally. Come on, Deutschland. Oh, it's got plenty of juice in the battery. I guess I'm gonna have to take one of the rest of the fourth car home. Oh well. So yeah, it did leave me stranded. Luckily it was at work, so I was able to basically just grab my different car from my from work garage, because yeah, I have more than one. But what happened was basically the day before that, I drove it to work, and it had a really difficult start. It took almost a minute to start up, which was, I kind of attribute towards it was getting cold. This is back when temperature were like, you know, dipping into 30s and all that stuff. And my idea was basically to get it to the work, leave it there while it was snowing and sleeting and being nasty weather, and then drive the Tahoe, which I did. But when the weather turned nice, as it is, I tried to grab it one day and it just didn't want to run. So I was like, okay, that's odd. Had I just popped the hood open and take a look at the fuel lines, these guys here, this one is meant to be as a really fast diagnostic tool. It will take me literally 1 second to find out that this happened. So yeah, I had an error in fuel line. Diesels don't like air. This thing does not self-purge itself like some other can, like Mercedes. Older Mercedes can do that. So yeah, so I was left stranded over a $12 part, which was somewhat of a, how should I say this, not so well engineered German thing. So what I did was, I went online and tried to find out what exactly usually happens, and there was a couple bunch of suggestions, and one of them was that basically the pickup gets clogged with algae, nasty stuff, soot, and all that stuff, and basically start to not work properly, and then you have, you know, bubbles coming up. I'm like, all right, that's reasonable to assume with something that has 260,000 miles with unknown history. So I decided to blindly fire up the parts cannon and get it, and which I did. And this is the part that I yanked out. Go on the other side. There we go. A little more sun. So this is the pickup that sits in a gas tank, has connection for the indicator for the fuel level, pickup line, dump line, really simple thing, and it has a little mechanism so it doesn't allow backflow of the fuel. But the moment I took it out, I realized that this part was actually in a really good shape. There is no soot, there is no grime, there is no mold. There is no any indication that this should be a failure point. I don't know, can you tell, but this pickup is pristine. I mean, except for a little bit of a yellowing. I don't know, can you tell? But that was it. So that was my first indication of that my line of thinking was probably incorrect. I did replace it. Let's go inside and I'll show you the pristine new one. So this is the brand new one. I actually splurged to the video one, which is basically a stock replacement. And I gotta hand it to the Germans. The access to this thing is actually remarkably easy. You literally pop the back seat out, and only this portion of the back seat. There's 3 screws that hold this service panel, and out it goes. I mean, it took less than 5 minutes to get to it, compared to American-made stuff that you had to cut the hole out or drop the tank. Yeah, this is much easier. But upon replacement, again, I mean, I still had a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of air coming into the tubes when I was trying to purge it, so I knew that that was not my problem. Side note, this thing is actually sunk into the tank, so we'll actually clear the seats, so we'll actually be flat with the seats. So make sure that your tank is I would say maximum 2/3 full. Mine is just about there, and what I had problems with, it's basically when I unscrewed that lid, it was almost spilling out into that little wheel well, no, into that little trench, however I want to call it. So, and of course, when I was putting the new one in, it started to spill up a little bit, but luckily everything is contained there. So I left it out to air out a little bit, so I don't smell diesel while I was driving. Plus, I can supervise it, make sure that nothing is leaking, and it looks like it's nice and dry. But yeah, I tried to siphon out the fuel, and I had almost zero luck. I don't know if there is an anti-siphon mechanism in a gas tank or not, but I had almost zero luck. Even when I hooked up my siphoning hose to the pull-out line, it still didn't want to flow. I guess because the car is so low to the ground, I didn't have enough Archimedes in me for that. So I just changed it, and it was very close to be a disaster. Because again, if tank was any more fuller than it was, I will probably have a huge spill on the inside of the car. So don't do it. But so what I did was I did a little bit of a try and error type deal. Well, they found out that you cannot purge the lines by sucking the air from this end. So I have the little handy dandy vacuum pump that I tried to do it at work. I'm gonna pop the picture in of my setup, and what I did was I hooked up to the basically to the return line, hoping that it will draw the fuel in. It doesn't work that way for some odd reason. One other YouTuber mentioned that as well. But basically, what you need to do is, in order to purge the fuel pump correctly, you basically unscrew this banjo out, and then put your intake for the vacuum pump here, and that's how you pull out the vacuum. The air out of the pump. Or option B, pull up this hose and manually fill up the pump with the thing. And after that, once you got the pump purged from air, you purge the lines the usual way. Once I was done with that, the car fired up immediately. But it took me almost half a day to research that, find it out, do it properly. And what was happening, I was still pulling air on the basically coming out from the filter. So I realized that there's a problem with the filter. And of course the hoses are kind of old and brittle and whatnot, so I had to make sure that nothing is happening from that point on. And what Germans did in their, God bless them, over-engineered part is you have this little gizmo that's a thermal valve that sits on top of the fuel filter, and basically allows partial recirculation of the warm fuel coming from the engine back into the fuel filter and kind of mixing it up with the cold fuel coming from the tank and preventing icing, which is genius. But the problem is this thing actually sits in a filter, and basically you cannot use any of your fuel system with this thing being out, because then if you remove this from the fuel filter, you have a giant hole in the fuel filter. Will just keep sucking air, and you can tell. I'm not quite sure this thing is supposed to rattle. So I even changed the little grommets. These are like $7 a pop, and I changed them as well, coming from my brand new fuel filter that I had spare. Didn't change a lick of difference, but the key point in the whole procedure was when I found out, when I tested the fuel that was coming straight from the tank into the filter was coming out without any bubbles whatsoever. So I knew that something in that fuel filter was not jiving. So I decided to what you want to call it thing, circumvent the fuel filter. And this is my $7 solution. I went to the AutoZone for the 14th time and just grabbed a couple of the I call them Christmas tree. They're basically a hose extender, whatever I'm gonna call it. So this is a temporary solution until I get the until I receive the thermal valve back on, so I can put everything back together. This made car run within 5 minutes of everything is being connected together. The only problem is, of course, now the fuel is going unfiltered into the fuel pump, which are fairly sensitive. So until I get that, I'm really gonna avoid running this car with this setup as is. But that kind of gave me an idea of, okay, this is the answer, this was the problem. Car runs beautifully now, no issues whatsoever. But freaking Germans, $12, we will leave you stranded. It will leave you stranded. And the problem is, you cannot, without buying stuff from the AutoZone, or without circumventing the fuel filter somehow, you will not be able to continue your trip. And this is, of course, vehicle specific. It's not like you can buy this in a grocery store like you can with the Chevy. But that's the update. When I get everything done, then the car will go to the mechanic to get replaced for the bushings on the rear axle subframe, and then we'll do something about the brakes. That's the newest and latest. Until then, so long.